morning, and today I'd like to talk to you about an early Germanic lyre I made. Now, this type of lyre was played in Anglo-Saxon England, Francia, early medieval France, and Dark Age Germany, and of course in the Norselands. Now, I based it on reconstructions of the Anglo-Saxon lyre found in the grave of King Raedwald at Sutton Hoo, but this particular example was based on what is known as the the Alemannic warrior's harp. Now, this is it's so called because it was found in the tomb of a 7th century German warrior from, I think, Thuringia in Germany. The Alemanni were one of the German tribes in that period. They were the hereditary enemies of Charlemagne's Franks. And the name Alemanni simply means all men, and is from the French term for Germany. Allemand is derived. As you can see, it's like the type of lyre played at Sutton Hoo, in that it has a very long, in that it is rectangular with straight horns coming up here. There's a crossbow, bridge, tailpiece. Again, that's under a lot of pressure. I found with other lyres I made that the sheer tension of the strings tended to snap them, so you have to make them of a certain width, simply to give it strength to hold the strings. These usually had 6 strings. I've here given it about 7 to bring it up closer to our diatonic scale. Benjamin Bagley, however, who is a very great figure on the early music scene, he did a concert a few years ago of his reconstruction of Beowulf as it would have been heard by the Anglo-Saxons accompanied by the lyre. He has suggested that Anglo-Saxon music was pentatonic, 5 tones, and created reconstructions again, as with Beowulf, of what this music may have originally sounded like. It's quite peculiar. At some points it sounds more like modern Eastern music because it's modal rather than using the modern Western scales, and modern folk with that kind of with the folk cadence. Da, 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 that cadence comes in there, and again you hear this a lot in reconstructed early medieval music of the Anglo-Saxons and also of the Vikings. Not all lyres had 5 or 6 strings. There is an example of a Roman kithara, a Roman lyre, in the Corinium Museum in Cirencester, which I think has 12 or 20 strings. It really is an elaborate instrument, and I think it was made for a skilled professional player rather than an amateur. Or if it was made for an amateur, it was made for a very high performing aristocrat. Now, as I said in a previous video with the ancient Middle Eastern lyre, we're used to seeing lyres played upright like this. But they were also played down here and strummed. They're held and they're stopped. The strings are stopped from behind, and the results can be very interesting indeed. It's much more like listening to rock guitar almost. Quite modern, and yet this is how these instruments are traditionally played. Anyway, that is the Alemannic warrior's harp. You can see illustrations of the type of harps, of lyres played in Anglo-Saxon England in examples of illustrated manuscripts like the Book of Kells, which was obviously in Ireland, and others, illustrated manuscripts from that period. The British lyres tend to have more of a curve on the crosspiece, and they're not quite so inclined. They're more they're more definitely square. But this is roughly the same shape of the lyres that were found all over barbarian Europe at this time. Thank you for listening.